Hey everyone, welcome to the Wild and Uncut podcast brought to you by Ruger. I'm your host, Kristy Titus. Thank you for tuning in. The line is going hot, so let's go full send on this episode.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing is we'll range it, and then I'll use the line tool to draw and be like, yeah, that's right, you know, or hey, I hit 1,000 yards here. This is where that's at on the map, so the deer has to be there. Every year, your innovation, it just never ceases to amaze me. All of the complexities that you're building into one app. Hey everybody, thank you for joining us live from the Wild Sheep Foundation Convention in Reno, Nevada. I'm here with Dylan Dowson from OnX Hunt. Dylan, you just rolled in a little bit late, but you're here, so better late than never.
Yep, travel was pretty rough, but here, so it's good. It's been great. I've been here, I think this is my second day, so.
Yeah.
Not enough time, like you said, to chat with it. It's never enough time to meet with everybody and talk to everybody and see everything you want to see, but it's been a great show. It's nice to be back in person again.
Oh my gosh. We've been talking about that. Like when I launched the podcast, you're like, let's do a podcast. I'm like, ew, yeah, well, I'm doing them like in person because we have the video side, because I have a much bigger video audience than current audio audience. And I'm like, we got to get together face to face and do this. And I am just so thankful that you're here. OnX does not have a booth here.
Nope.
But you guys are here with Hunt and Fool has a booth, and you guys have a great partnership with them right now. So you have a definite presence in this room.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a few of us from OnX here just kind of walking around and doing podcasts, meeting with folks. And it's definitely worth coming down. And Sheep's like probably my favorite show. It's nice because it's not giant. You can still see everybody you want to see. But it's just a really cool, well done show.
It is a great show. If you guys haven't been, you all need to make the trek to Reno once a year. It's literally like coming home. You see all your friends, great outfitters, great gear, tons of people, and it's just like a different vibe, I feel like. The cool thing about this show, I think, is at night, when the auction is going on, or even after the auction's over, everybody congregates at the pepper mill, and you're in one place. So it's not like people are scattered all over the city in different restaurants and different places. Everybody's in one spot, and it's a great fellowship that they have built with this organization, and it's great that OnX is participating. And I think everybody here, myself included, we're completely addicted to OnX technology. And you guys, I don't know how you do it, but every year your innovation, it just never ceases to amaze me. All of the complexities that you're building into one app and the great relationships that you're pairing with it. I mean, it went from being, oh, do you have OnX because we want to know landowner information or public-private land boundaries, to now you guys are helping with hunt planning. You've launched 3D maps. I'm buying real estate right now, and I'll go on Realtor.com and I look up land parcels, kind of figure out where they are, and the first thing I do is get on my OnX. I mean, the tool for it, I can tell how much public land is around, where it's at, where my access points are. I mean, it's a tool that I use darn near every day right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And we hear more and more people say that they're using it for real estate or for all sorts of different things, right? Even at the show, if you're parking, like I'll drop a waypoint because, I'm not used to cities or the area. I've dropped several waypoints and been like, hey, we'll meet here.
My realtor will take pictures from different parts of these ranches, and then she'll drop the pin on OnX with that photo attached and send them to me. So when I'm looking at the 3D map, then I can open up the photo that's attached to that. It's remarkable what you guys have done.
I use it a lot for that too. We recently bought a new home. And I have plans to put a shop up and just do certain different things. And like on OnX, I have it all kind of marked out. Like, here's where I want to shop. Here's, we're going to move this. And it's pretty much a daily use tool at this point.
Yeah, it's insane. So we're kind of coming out of hunting season, and I did a testimonial I'm editing up for you guys right now. And I think that the way we spot and stalk hunt has changed and transformed so much. So in the past, you'd see an animal 1,000 yards away or a mile away in a spotting scope, and you might get a compass bearing on the direction that animal was and head out. And then you get on the ground And everything looks different on the ground once you're there than your vantage point. And it was always so easy to like lose your perspective or lose where that animal was. Like this year, numerous times we'd see bucks from 2 or 3 miles away, and we'd be like, we just really need to get closer because it's a mid 160s deer, could be a mid 170s. Is there something missing on this buck that we're missing? Some. You're so far
not
away.
Seeing it all.
That little extra kicker. Is there something we're missing? So let's let's bust out and get a closer look. And instead of just getting a compass reading and a direction and going and being somewhat blind, man, we were able to like measure with our line tool, count a drainage over, pretty much mark a waypoint where that animal was, get the wind right, and do legitimate stalks with that tool, not lose our terrain association. And there's numerous times that we were in the zone and I could have shot bucks this year, and it was like, you'd look around and you're like, oh gosh, this doesn't look right.
So
but
different.
This is what the pin, we're close, we're in that zone. I mean, it's made hunting so much more efficient, especially, in big western landscapes.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a perfect use case. I tell people that all the time, especially too, you don't have to expose yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, if you're either keeping tabs on that deer or, you're not sure if it's the next ridge, so you need to go to the top of this ridge to check, like the less you expose yourself, the better off you're going to be until you're ready to obviously be in a position to make the shot or look at it again or whatever. But I started doing that a lot spring bear hunting because, you'll glass up a bear across the drainage, and if you don't drop a waypoint or anything and just take off after it, you can waste the whole day because
turned around.
Yeah, you get over there and it's like I have no clue if I'm 50 yards from that opening that bear was in or 500. Everything just looks different. And so, I always say exactly what you just said there. Drop a waypoint. It might take an extra second to figure out exactly where it is, but it's going to save you so much time in the long run. And it's easy to be like, oh, there's, I finally glassed up a bull or a nice buck, and I've been here all day, many hours on this rock glassing or whatever. It's easy just to grab the pack and the rifle and just take off. But if you just take a second and like study the map, and again, it's like, okay, is he 2 drainages? Well, it might look like he's 2, but if you look at the topo on the map, he's actually 4, and there's 2 in between that you don't see.
You don't see with the naked eye,
So it saves so much time in the long run, and that's for spot and stock one of the biggest thing. And I know you mentioned the line tool to like distance, right?
Yeah.
But also if you use the rangefinder to verify that.
Yeah.
So there's been times where, I'll be like...
Well, that's exactly what we're doing is we'll range it, and then I'll use the line tool to draw and be like, yeah, that's right, or, hey, I hit 1,000 yards here. This is where that's at on the map, so the deer has to be there. Because sometimes you're obviously with beyond the capabilities of your laser rangefinder.
Yeah. But to double check or like, I'll drop a waypoint, and then if it's within, a couple thousand yards and I can range it, then I'll do the line tool and then range it. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm 200 yards off, clearly I misplaced that waypoint, right? So it's a cool way to verify and double check.
I'm even doing that with real estate shopping. When I'm looking at ranches, I'm like, okay, well, I want 1,000-yard range. Yeah. So let me use the line tool, and I'm measuring across properties and ranches to see if it's going to give me the distance that I'm looking for a shooting facility. I mean, I don't even have to. How would we do this before? Like, you would have to be on the ground every time. I can rule out a property like instantly with that line tool. It's saved me so much hassle. And headache of being disoriented or whatever. It's incredible.
I use it a lot too on the computer for drawing hiking routes. So like on the computer, it's really easy to do a free draw instead of like dot to dot where it's straight line. So like I'll do a free draw and just kind of draw a route up a spine of a ridge, maybe drop a waypoint for a glassing point, whatever, and then maybe it's a through hike or whatever it is. Save it, and then you can see the distance, and
elevation change.
Elevation profile, which is really nice. It's if you're good at reading a topo map, it's easy to understand, but like a lot of folks don't quite understand how to read topo maps. So it's easy to be like, okay, if I right out of the gate have a 3,000 foot climb, like that's going to be, for a lot of folks might be a little bit more than they want to bite off. Or even like, layering accordingly. Like if I'm going to get out of the pickup and climb 2,000 feet, I'm not going to be, layered up heavy in the morning.
Yeah, you want to start out cold and...
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I use that a lot. And then the nice thing, which I know is I save it on the computer. It automatically is on my phone. So when I'm out there in the field, I just look and, everything that I prepared for on the computer is just right on the phone. So.
And you can download those maps. A lot of people don't realize, they're like, well, I don't have phone service, so this isn't going to work for me. You can download those maps, and then there's 3 different perspectives you can download in a 10-mile radius, a 5-mile radius, and then the last one...
150.
150-mile radius. So you can have a giant perspective of an area that's not as detailed, or you can just crimp it down into exactly, that finite spot that you're wanting to look at.
And really what the difference is there is, like, obviously the 150s, the big ones, you get a lot of area, which is great. But you're not going to be able to zoom in real tight and get like the detailed, crisp, clean imagery. So what I do is, like, I've got the entire state of Montana with the big maps.
Yeah.
So no matter where I'm at in Montana, I'm covered. I at least have, private, public, game management, hunting units, roads, trails. I can see topo imagery, whatever I want. But then the nice thing is, on top of those, I can go into areas that I know I'm hunting and save those 5 or 10 miles. So if I need to zoom in real tight to be like, okay, that bear is in between 2 trees and an opening 800 yards away, and look at the map and like zoom in to clean enough imagery so I can say, okay, there's those 2 trees. That's where the bear was. Then you can do that. So I have hundreds of saved maps on my phone. And that still to this day is the most common misconception, right? It's like, yeah, what you guys have is incredible. I love it. It's game changing, but I don't hunt where there's service. So still today, I think that's the biggest misconception is it works 100% offline. You just have to download the maps, like you said.
So you guys you're always, like I said, you're always innovating. You guys came out with 3D capabilities this year, so you can still function in a traditional topo view perspective.
Yep.
You have a 2D view, and then you guys have now introduced a 3D view. And it's really transforming how we use our phones.
Yep.
And the nice thing about it is it's very intuitive to kind of flip between looking at that topo view to a 3D view, just literally like a touch of a button. It's so easy.
Yeah, and we're actually in the middle right now of working on some updates with the 3D, so it's going to be big improvements coming.
Okay.
Right now on the computer, it's full functionality, so you can drop waypoints, you can turn layers on and off. The phone is a little limited right now on what you can do as far as like the layers and the data on top of the 3D, but that's being worked on right now. So I'm excited for that one because it's 3D is nice. I mean, yes, you can see everything with topo, but 3D is just a really nice feature to have.
So what is the biggest... I mean, you've launched so much this year, your Top Rep partnership, your Hunt and Fool partnerships. Explain to kind of our listeners some of the newer and everything you guys just did with Drury Outdoors. Oh my gosh, for whitetail hunting.
Yep.
Holy smokes, like the moon phase charts and the hunt planning charts. Let me back it up. Sorry, I just get so excited. There's so many things.
There's a lot of new things, yes.
Yeah, so start with what you're doing with Hunt and Fool.
So we started last year. We've been partners with Hunt and Fool for about a year now, a little bit over, but essentially for our elite membership. So we have a premium and an elite membership. An elite membership gets you all 50 states. Premium is a single state. On top of it, with the elite membership, not only do you get all 50 states, but we're doing a lot of really cool elite benefits now. Hunt and Fool is one of those. So for many years we've worked with Hunt and Fool. We trust them for all their knowledge. They're incredibly knowledgeable. But now, if you're an elite member, you get a free digital membership to Hunt and Fool. So all you have to do is sign in with your OnX credentials on our website, and then you have free access to their digital e-magazine, which I know you're familiar with a little bit. It's incredible.
My husband's a member. He gets the regular magazine. And we literally have, like, in our living room, a stack of these things, and he studies them, and he has tabs. And then we do charts of when we have to put in and what units we want to put in for. And having that digitally, like, I'm not going to pack around a magazine. But when we're on the road or we're on the go, it's nice to have that digital access. Because if we're somewhere like here, my husband's also a booking agent, so if he can't quite remember something, he can open that up in the app and have that full access.
Yeah, a ton of information in there. I tell everybody this, it's not your standard hunting magazine that you buy at, a gas station, right?
No, it's not like that at all. I mean, it's really there to help you plan your hunt, and it's a huge resource, and if you leave it sitting and collecting dust, it's never going to help you.
Exactly. I mean, I was born and raised in Montana. We have a lot of opportunity. I'm busy in Montana, hunting just Montana, right? And so a few years ago, I started expanding, hunting some other states and just applying for some other states. I use Huntful a ton, but their magazine helped me out a ton. Like Colorado, I didn't know a lot of how it worked, and state to state it's so different. You figure out a state and you think it's all probably like, that Wyoming's probably similar to Montana. It's not. Nothing about it is similar. So I had a ton of questions, and it felt really daunting. I was like a hurdle I had to jump through to be able to apply and hopefully hunt these states. And just reading through the magazine, on the particular states, answered all of my questions. It was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, we used it a lot in my book Cliffs hunt this year, trying to figure out, what we could expect to find for trophy quality and, just a little bit of information about the zone, and I ended up taking within what, Hunt and Fool really suggested of, hey, this is going to be considered a trophy unit or a trophy animal in that unit now. And, we find the information really valuable. We're getting ready to move to Wyoming, and there's so many questions when you move, and we're learning now that my non-resident points will become irrelevant when we move in Wyoming, and so now the Hunt and Fool just came out with the digital magazine and the printed magazine, and so my husband is now dissecting that with me, and we're going in and trying to figure out what the best hunting strategy is. And I think for those of you that are do-it-yourself hunters, that's a phenomenal partnership and combination tool.
And the digital magazine is only one aspect of it too, right?
Absolutely.
So they just have a lot. You can go on there and get a previous tag holder list. So if I draw a special tag or really any tag, I can fill out this deal on their website, and they put me in touch with other folks who have drawn that. So if I draw a once in a lifetime moose hunt, something like that, other folks who have hunted that same unit are more likely to, hey, here's what I saw, here's a good access point, etc. Obviously, that's different on public land, deer, and over-the-counter tags. But that's another cool thing they have to offer. There's just a lot of cool stuff with it, and it's a huge value add to our customer, right? Before you might have had to have 3 or 4 different memberships, subscriptions to everything you need. And now if you're an OnX Elite member, you pretty much have everything you need for all of application season, and then obviously the maps in the field.
So switching focus from this Western big game hunting and looking at Eastern hunting, I love whitetail hunting. And I mean, it's so weird. I don't know if I shake more than I do in a deer stand. My husband and I were deer hunting this year, and there was only one day all season because it was crazy hot all season. The rut was so slow. The deer weren't chasing like normal during the day, and there was one day where we had whitetail chasing, legit the way it's supposed to be whitetail hunting. And I was shaking so hard, and the stand is shaking, and my husband's like, oh my gosh, what are you freaking out like this? But I freak out whitetail hunting. It's an incredibly addicting animal to hunt, and especially you think you're just sitting in a stand, how exciting can it be? It is very exciting, but it's also a very complex hunt. If you're a Western hunter and you're not used to whitetail hunting, you could look at whitetail and think, well, you just go sit in a tree.
Yeah, it's easy.
Not really the way it works. You need to find out, what direction is the wind, what stand can you get into with that particular wind direction, where are the deer bedding? Are you going to bump them out of a bedding area entering your stand? Are you going to try to sit a stand, and it's a stand where they're coming off food in the morning and then going out to feed in the evening? So what's your best place to sit? Where are they going? What's happening?
It's like a chess match.
Oh my gosh, it's literally a chess match. And I love my OnX because I can take and look at the farms that I hunt, and I've hunted the same farm for 4 years or something. I have all my stands marked out. I know which one, this one's on beans, this one's on turnips, this one's on a trail. This one's good if the acorns are dropped and they're just hoovering the forest floor.
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, well, which one, if I'm only sitting a half a day for whatever reason, well, which one can I get into this afternoon? And it just gives you this giant aerial perspective. But you guys have taken like the ability just to mark your stands to that next level with the juries this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So very similar to what we just talked about with Hunt and Fool. We do offer a jury deer cast. So if you're an OnX Elite member, you now have access to that too, right? So it's just a super easy way to compile everything you need all throughout the year. So instead of us just providing maps, it's like providing the whole experience all throughout the year, and working with the best in the industry to do that. I'm curious, have you used, so it's a relatively new feature, but the wind on the waypoint?
No, that
for whitetail
launched
for
yet
sure.
when I was whitetail hunting, and then as soon as I got done whitetail hunting, I did all these stand-ups talking about, oh, this is how I use my OnX, and then you guys launched
right
it like a week later, and I'm like, what?
And that's,
like,
such a crucial.
Call me and let me know this is coming. Like, beta test me on this, you know.
Yeah.
So unfortunately I missed the boat on that.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of improvements to that. But essentially what that is for folks who don't know is, I can drop a waypoint and then do like an optimal wind on that waypoint.
Yeah.
So whether it be a stand, which is obviously a great use case for whitetail. So I mark a tree stand. Obviously you have all that, you can choose a tree stand waypoint, change the color, change the name, add a photo, all that cool stuff. But now I can say, okay, out of this particular stand, I need a west-northwest wind, or like that's the optimal wind, and here's like the subset of winds. And
so how I do that is I just title, the way I did it prior to this technology is I would title with the name.
Yeah.
So I would do northwest /west, and then I would do the stand name. So then I would just look at it really quickly, like, oh, okay, what's the wind today? We have a south wind, we have a north wind, whatever. And then you can do a notes in the waypoint, like this is an absolute no-go if there's any south to the wind.
Or like I can get away with like a west wind, but it's not optimal. But yeah, now it just shows right on the map. And we're working on a lot of improvements, some cool stuff that we can chat about off camera a little bit, for kind of the next step of that, right?
Yeah, the moon phase too. I know the Drury Deer Cast has this big moon phase thing, and I'm a huge believer in following that. Like, I watch my hunt planner, and it's not 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not 100%, but it's just, man, tomorrow's going to be a 100% day. Like, it gives you something to look forward to, and I believe that there's a lot to that. It ties to the moon phase, it ties to barometric pressure changes even, and I mean, like you see it, I see it with a falling barometer, like my horses. When the barometer is starting to fall, they get spicy, and they're bucking and kicking, and they'll be playing in the field, and they just are so much more active, and wildlife are the same way, and so you guys make all of this so easy for a hunter to pick it up, and it's super intuitive.
Yeah, no, it's been a really cool year for us, like with all the elite benefits and just providing more, instead of, again, just looking at, and maps are crucial, right? Like you have to have the maps, and that's the core of what we do, obviously, but just looking at it from a different perspective and being like, okay, we're covered on maps, like, but as an OnX customer, like what else? Like, what's the journey throughout the year, right? We all know that you don't just pick up hunting during hunting season, and some folks do, and that's great. Like, maybe they hunt 1 week out of the year, and that's great, but so much prep goes into it, and whether you're whitetail hunting or hunting bighorn sheep, like, there's a lot to it, and so that was our main goal of this last year, is to provide the whole experience. And so, those are a couple cool ones. Top rut, we do the same thing with draw odds, so I can go in and say, okay, Montana, I've got 12 mule deer points or whatever, and then see all the draw odds for that state and stuff. We recently are working with...
And we're using that feature right now for trying to plan what unit we're going to put in for Wyoming, or am I just going to put in for the general? What do I want to, what's going to give me the best odds? Can my husband, you can also look at it, can someone piggyback on you, like on your points? What will that do to your odds of drawing? Is it worth waiting? Pull the trigger, don't.
Is it like the lowest point or the, and that's where like a combination of a Hunt and Fool and a top rut for that, really comes to play. We're also doing a new one with Hunt Reminder. And so what that is it's a service that will text you and email you and let you know when certain application periods are open.
Oh, wow.
And then it'll, let you know, like, hey, you have like a week left or like 24 hours left to apply for this tag. So that's also free.
Because I think we've all done that where we're
yes.
my gosh, I missed the deadline for...
Yep.
Yeah.
3 points or anything, and you're taking 2 steps back when you do that.
Yeah.
It's hard enough. It's getting so much harder to draw tags that if you forget to apply, like, obviously you can't win if you don't play, right?
No, you can't win.
And even on the ones that are difficult, it's a huge bummer when you do forget, and we've all done it. So that's another cool one, free with OnX Elite again. So I can go in and they have an absurd amount of hunts, just a lot. I'll misspeak if I say a big number because it'll be wrong, but a ton of hunts. And so you go in there and be like, okay, I'm interested in Wyoming elk, Wyoming mule deer, Colorado mule deer, maybe just all these things, and just like check the boxes, and then it will remind you for those. So just another really cool one that
so you're not getting hit up for all of the deadlines. It's just the specific ones that you select
that you have dedicated to want to learn more about. So
what do you think is the biggest question that most people have, like the first time they pick up OnX? Like, what are some of maybe the top 3 things that people don't know or don't know how to use in the software on their phone? Yeah,
the first one honestly is back to offline maps, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest one in my opinion. And when I started working at OnX like 7 years ago, I started out in customer service, and like phone call after phone call, like that was just like the same question constantly of like, what limitations does this have offline? It doesn't have any. It still shows your GPS location, still will allow you to turn layers on, turn layers off, mark waypoints, everything, as long as you save it. So I'd say that is by far the biggest. And beyond that, everybody uses it so differently that it's hard to pinpoint and be like, okay, here's like another really big one, because the whitetail hunter in Alabama is going to use it differently than the elk hunter in Oregon, right? And that's what's cool about it is, you can talk to 100 people about how they use OnX. Nobody's going to say the same thing. So like, you've done a really good job. Obviously, we talked about using it for spot and stock, right? Somebody is probably listening to this and was like, I've used OnX forever. I've never thought to, do some due diligence and mark a waypoint, use a line tool and make sure, so that's the cool thing about it is everybody just uses it so differently. Yep.
Yeah, no, I think it's something it's evolving like absolutely constantly. Some of the things I think that get missed would be the layers.
Yeah, there's a lot. People
don't understand like turning on and off layers. Like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And even like for me, the game management units this year, like I drew a limited entry tag, and I had the book cliffs unit pulled up, but then there's subcategories within there, sub layers as you call them, where it's like, no, I don't have the book cliffs tag, I have the limited entry, this tag. And then it'll actually show you those game management unit zones and areas. And so you can actually go in there and really hunt with confidence if you're using those layers properly.
Yeah, and you do have to use them properly, That is a really good point. A lot of people don't know, like Montana, for example, we have, deer, elk, lion is kind of our general game management units, and that covers quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we have different pronghorn units, we have different bear units, we have different mountain lion units. Like, there are a lot of other units, and so we obviously can't show all of those in the product because it would just look like a jumbled mess. You wouldn't even know what's what. But if you go into the layer and layer settings, then you can see all of them, right? So if I draw a bighorn sheep tag this year, hopefully, I can go in.
All of us.
I can go into Montana and choose bighorn sheep game management units, and it'll populate just those. So there's a lot.
Very species and state specific then, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. And there is a lot of data, right? We recently, fairly recently, have launched like crop data. So it'll show you the previous year's crop subset, what was planted where, which is really cool. At first, I was like, I primarily am a Western big game hunter. I was like, I'll use it. I used it a lot more than I thought I would, especially for, like breaks hunting elk, right? if I can find public land with cover for bedding, and I turn on that alfalfa layer, and I see that there's private, a quarter mile away, some big alfalfa fields, it's like, clearly that's what they're going to be doing. And then if I can, find ambush spots or just anything in between access points, like, it's huge. So that's another one, like, there's a lot of layers to it. It takes a minute to use it to its full potential. But that's the best thing I tell people to do is just go into the app. You're not going to break it.
Yeah.
Like, go into the app, spend, 20 minutes poking around and turn things on, turn them off. And that's going to be the best way to learn.
And you guys, another layer I really rely upon a lot is the burn layer.
Yep.
And it will list, the year the fire burnt, and then kind of tell you a little bit how hot it burnt, all of that, so is this was like scorched, or is it good habitat now? Has it been a year? Is it cycling back and the animals are going to be foraging in there? And that burn unit is, for bears and elk and deer, to me it's a no-brainer to have that layer on specifically for big game hunting.
That for big game hunting, and then like you said, bear hunting. Another really cool one for bear hunting is the timber cuts. So you can see, like, was it a full clear cut? Was it partial? We show those too, so that helps out a ton. Just for shooting lanes and glassing, and I'm in western Montana, and most of the western part of Montana, like, it's pretty thick. There are some open spots, but to pinpoint those and be like, okay, here's a really thick drainage, and then there's 2 clear cuts in it, and here's the year that they were cut, etc. Like, I know going in there that I'm going to at least have a chance of seeing a bear or whatever I'm hunting.
Well, and it also gives you, because clear cuts, obviously, once they're replanted, they're designed to regrow.
Yep.
So just because there was a clear cut at one point doesn't mean you're going to see anything other than a bunch of reprod growing in, and you can't see any forest floor, and you've just wasted an afternoon going in to get a vantage point to glass a reprod patch that you can see. That's where literally nothing.
The dates come into play really nice there. And same thing with the fire too, right?
Yeah,
like, if
for sure.
If something was burned really hot last year or recently before, like, it's not probably going to be worthwhile to go in there. There's a ton of data, and that it can seem like a hurdle for some folks, just like overwhelming amount of data.
I think it's important to learn to prioritize with species, and then what are your major hunt considerations? What are we looking for with how you're going to hunt bears? You're going to be looking for a very different set of features than when you're hunting whitetail, and a lot of different considerations. Although some of them are kind of overlapping, also food and wind. But it is you're going to be looking for a different set of opportunities that come from using the app that will help you have more hopefully success in the field with that species. But I can't say enough about the app and the programming you guys are doing and the partnerships you guys are doing. It's evolving so far from just landowner information.
And still, that's still probably the number one reason people still get the app, right? Is, landowner information, private, public. And that's that's the nice thing about that is it's not going anywhere. We can add on top of it. But, that might be the reason that people initially buy it, because they're hunting, a state where there's a lot of private, public, and they need it for a particular hunt. But then once they're in, they realize, okay, like, now I have everything all throughout the year that I need, some cool discounts to partners gear, and I
don't even use a handheld GPS anymore. I had one with like the 2-way radio and all of that jazz, and now I'm like, I have all these old GPSs and I don't use them because I do everything on my phone, and the clarity, the download speed. When you're downloading maps, I do it on Wi-Fi, but even if you have to use your data, the download speed is really fast. Well, I guess that would depend on your service, but it's super fast. It's not like it takes hours to download a map. I mean, it's pretty intuitive. It's pretty quick, and it's right there at the touch of your fingers. I mean, we always have our phones on us, and it just makes our hunting experience really enriched. One of the really cool features I also love is the waypoint sharing. So like you talked about, you mark where you park your car or whatever, and you can send those waypoints, but sharing like, hey, there's a wallow I found here.
Yep.
Maybe set up a tree stand or brush in a blind and go hit that this afternoon. If it's slow hunting or whatever.
Like you just said, we were talking about tree stands and whitetail hunting. Can you imagine trying to explain to somebody where a tree stand, like if they're trying to morning hunt it or something, like without something like OnX where it's like, here's a waypoint and here's my track in or whatever. Like trying to explain to somebody how to get into a stand in the dark, you're going to do more harm than good. Like you might as well just sleep in.
Unless you set cat eyes. If you set cat eyes in trees, if there's the opportunity to do those cat eyes, stuff like that really helps. But it is tough. I mean, without having them marked, it's especially, a lot of these hunting clubs are using OnX now to help mark stands, and then they assign who's in the stands for the day, and it's a tremendous resource. And then a lot of people that want to manage big deer are marking harvest locations. You can take and mark your where you're putting your trail cameras, because I think there's a lot of us that have lost trail cameras, can't quite remember where we put our trail cameras. And then you can even kind of use this as a scouting plan. Like what I have done in the past is, if I'm going to go scout for elk, I'll go in and say, okay, well, I found some rubs mid-August where a bull was working off his velvet, and you mark those rubs. Okay, well, I found a wallow, which they're not hitting it, but I saw some elk tracks around it, so maybe they're using it to drink. There's probably a bull there. And then, okay, I found some beds over here. And then, I get on the ground and I mark those waypoints into my OnX, take pictures, associate that, and then when I get home, I pull it into my computer and I get this whole area perspective of, okay, well, especially pre-rut for me with elk, because a lot of times those bulls are not like with 20 cows. They're in bachelor groups or they're by themselves, so they're not leaving like a ton of sign. But they're still leaving sign, so I can kind of take a look like, okay, well, here's where there's some beds, here's where there's some water, here's where I saw some fresh tracks or whatever, here's where I saw fresh rub. Get that aerial perspective, and then when you go into that unit, you can say, okay, well, if I'm going in the morning, I'm not going to want to pull in above them because my wind is going to be going down, and I know, whatever, so let's jump in from the bottom, and he's bedding in this area, or I found some beds in this area, so let's, plan on working up to that zone. And you really can like totally strategize, like virtually plan your hunt without doing a ton on the ground. I mean, a couple scouting trips can give you so much information, and it's generational information. A lot of times that information is
year to year. A different bull's going to move into that area.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And like you said, it's really nice to be able to pull it back up on a computer, right? And be like, for whatever reason, that bigger screen just really helps you out. And then also you can flip on Topo or 3D and say, okay, like, what you might not be able to put together, like in the field especially, as you're walking around and gathering all this data, might become very apparent on the computer, or when you're at home and you turn on Topo and you're like, there's a perfect saddle in between where he's bedding and the wallow that I'm pretty sure that same bull is hitting.
So here's your pinch point to try to
stalk. Like clearly if you hear that bull bugle and he's making, moving that way, like now you're in the field and you're looking at it and you're like, I know if that bull is going to come to this wallow based on where he's bugling right now, like he's going to hit the saddle or he's going to hit this trail. And so, what you might not be able to like articulate quite in the field, later on looking at it from the computer especially, and flipping between aerial and Topo and 3D and stuff, it might just be like, aha, like it makes so much more sense now. And like you said, it's a great point. Maybe you shoot that bull, or maybe someone else does, maybe that bull dies of old age or whatever. Another elk's going to move into that area more than likely. And, I do that with mule deer all the time. One of the things I've really been doing lately that's helped me out a lot is keeping track of like deer. If I'm hunting the same area year after year, like I'll phone scope video or photos of a particular buck, and he might just not be, what I'm looking for at that time. But then I mark a waypoint, attach a photo of that deer to the waypoint, mark what year it is, whatever. And, I've got some trends of like, I'm pretty sure I recognize that buck. And I think that was the buck I saw in this section, a couple miles away last year. And then I'll pull it up, look at it, either while I'm looking at him through the spotting scope or take a phone scope photo of him and compare it and be like, yep, that's that deer for sure. And now he's hanging out with a group of does a mile, farther north or whatever. And it's just, it's really helpful to do that.
It's fun.
And it's
fun to track deer. I mean, I don't know anybody. I mean, how many people name their deer that are whitetail hunters? Big nasty or whatever they're going to call them. But it is fun to watch them grow. It's fun to watch them live, and that's a part of the joy of being a hunter and being in the field. And we're very blessed to have not only all this technology to our hand, but just the opportunity to be out there in wild places. And you guys do so much for conservation. I mean, I really want to tip my hat to OnX. Like that's one thing. You guys are out there. You put your money into conservation, into land projects. You guys have a layer with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. So you can actually turn on a layer with OnX. It's an RMEF layer, and you can go in and see where they've maybe done some land improvement projects or different types of projects that might benefit wildlife. And draw them into an area, or just to know the work that volunteers and members are doing and people are doing across the country, I think is extremely noteworthy and valuable as far as a hunting asset. Yeah, no, it's really, it's part of our core, right? Yeah. And we really focus on access, land access and improvement. And we're very lucky to be able to work with the folks that we do, whether it's, Wild Sheep to RMEF to, our partners, we're very lucky that we're able to work with the great people that we do, and we try and help, wherever we can. And access, I know access is the number one reason people quit hunting or don't hunt. Or don't start, because they don't feel like they have access. And OnX really paints the picture of what is truly available for people. And then another great layer is some of your ranching for wildlife areas that you guys have in there. Landowners that'll allow, I can't think of the name of the, you help me out on this. So block management is Montana's. There's access, yes. There's walk-in areas. There's quite a few different names state to state, but block management is the Montana program. I'm looking at a ranch right now that has 2,000 acres of walk-in hunting, and I'm like, that to me opens up 2,000 acres that I wouldn't normally be able to enjoy, and so there's so much out there. There's so much opportunity you guys are doing. You guys are giving back so much to conservation. And that's really what it takes. We have to conserve the resources that we love being in so much. And I think with everything with COVID, people being on lockdowns, for me especially, it made me really appreciate the ability to have access to wild places, and you're making it more accessible for everyone. When someone puts up a fence for cattle grazing and posts it, you can walk up to that fence with confidence and look at your app and your phone and say, nah, this guy might have posted it, or someone's fraudulently posting, which happens a lot. You can cross that fence with confidence, and the great thing about this is there is a lot of game and fish officers that if you show them, hey, here's my OnX, this is where we're standing, this says it's public land. Well, there's thousands and thousands of them that use it too, right? As their source of truth, if you will. So, it's very helpful. It's hard to, whether I worked at OnX or not, it's one of the most important tools that I have. And it's, it sounds a little salesy if I say it since I work for the company, but it really is. If I, next year somebody said, oh, now you can't use your OnX, I would be lost. Oh my gosh. And scared. Yeah, you and me both. I don't know how people navigated the backcountry prior to OnX. I mean, it's really changed everything with hunting, and I can't thank you guys enough for everything that you do for wildlife, for wild places, for hunters, for opportunity. The partnerships that you're creating allow us all to be more independent. And, we're here at the Sheep Expo, and there's a lot of really great outfitters here, but there's a lot of value and a lot of reward of being able to do it yourself and hunt with confidence. And so I thank you guys for doing that. Thank you, Dylan, for joining us again. If you guys have any questions about OnX Hunt, you guys have Facebook, Instagram, a huge YouTube channel as well with tons of information. Where can people find you specifically? Yeah, I mean, it just depends on, like you said, we're pretty much everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We've got a great customer service team, a really big customer service team that answers calls and emails all day long. So that's the biggest thing is if folks have questions,
we would rather them reach out to us and ask. It might be something really simple that they just don't understand they can do. And we love to educate people. Yeah. It's obviously a techie product, right?
Yeah, but don't be intimidated because
it's not.
It's very user-friendly.
Yep. Yeah, and we do our best to make it as user-friendly as possible. Yeah. But at the end of the day, some people just don't feel comfortable, with that barrier of entry, or, maybe they're not even comfortable on a smartphone. Call us, email us, anything. We're happy to help. And yeah, it's been awesome to see the company's growth and the product's growth, you know, where we are today versus 7 years ago, when I first got on with OnX. And it just makes me really excited for the next 5 years, the next 10 years. What's it going to look like? And like you said, with access, that's a big focus of ours, and getting new people hunting, right? So it's pretty cool to be a part of a company who does that.
Well, thank you so much for your time explaining so much about OnX to everybody. There's so much to learn every year, and you guys are always adapting and changing and improving, and I'm so thankful for that, because every year it just gets better. So thank you all for joining us, Dylan and I from OnX, for this episode of the Wild and Uncut podcast, coming at you all live from the Wild Sheep Foundation Expo in Reno. And if you guys have any questions or looking for OnX, you know where to go. Just check them out online. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Wild and Uncut podcast. If you would like to hear more, be sure to subscribe to my Pursue the Wild digital series on YouTube and follow me at Kristy Titus on Facebook and Instagram.